There is something that happens in Japan that confuses almost every visitor from the West. You sit down in a restaurant, you order, and what arrives is not one plate. It is many, 5, 6, sometimes 8 small dishes arranged together, each one holding just a few bites. Rice in one bowl, soup in another, fish on a small plate, vegetables in a third, something pickled in a dish no larger than your palm. It looks like too little food. And then you finish, and you realize you are full. Genuinely, comfortably full. And the meal contained a fraction of what a single Western plate would have held. No one at the table is hungry. No one is deprived. No one is thinking about calories. And yet something about the mathematics of this meal is quietly, fundamentally different from anything you are used to. Japan has one of the lowest obesity rates among high-income nations. And researchers who study why keep arriving at the same answer. It is not a single miracle food. It is not a diet plan. It is a collection of small, embedded habits around how food is chosen, served, and eaten, repeated 3 times a day, across a lifetime, until the body simply never learns to store more than it needs. By the end of this video, you will know 7 of those habits. Habit number 3 is the one most Westerners find the hardest to believe, and habit number 7 is the quiet philosophy underneath all 6 of the others that makes the whole system hold. Before we begin, we need to set aside the idea that staying slim requires restriction, because that is not what Japan does. Japan eats rice at nearly every meal. Japan eats fried food, tempura, tonkatsu, karaage. Japan has desserts, pastries, convenience stores on every corner, vending machines selling sweet drinks on every block. This is not a nation of deprivation. It is a nation that eats abundantly but differently. And the difference is not what they cut out. It is how what they keep is structured. 7 habits, none of them a diet. All of them already on the table in millions of Japanese homes tonight. Here they are. Habit number 1. Many small dishes instead of one large plate. This is the most visible difference, and it is also the most misunderstood. In a traditional Japanese meal called ishiyu sansai, meaning 1 soup and 3 sides, food is divided across multiple small vessels. Rice, a bowl of miso soup, a main dish, usually fish or a small portion of meat, 2 or 3 vegetable sides. The total amount of food is not necessarily less than a Western meal, but the way it is presented changes how you interact with it. When food is spread across several small plates, you naturally alternate. A bite of this, then a bite of that. Each change resets your palate slightly, and that resetting slows the eating down. You taste more, you notice more. And the fullness signal, which takes roughly 20 minutes to travel from the stomach to the brain, has time to arrive before you have cleaned a single enormous plate. There is a second, subtler effect. A large plate with 1 food on it invites you to eat mechanically, fork after fork of the same thing until the plate is gone. Multiple small dishes invite choice, alternation, and attention. You're not just eating, you're composing each bite. And a mind that is composing is a mind that is present. And a mind that is present stops when it has had enough. You do not need Japanese dishes. Serve tonight's dinner on 3 or 4 smaller plates instead of 1 large one. Split the protein, the starch, and the vegetables into separate vessels. Watch what happens to the speed and the satisfaction of the meal. You will eat the same amount of food, perhaps even a little less, and feel noticeably more satisfied. The structure did the work that willpower could never do. That is habit number 1. Habit number 2. Soup at the beginning of the meal. In Japan, miso soup is not a side dish you sip alongside everything else. It arrives at the start, and it is often the first thing consumed. This is not a flavor preference. It is a strategy, whether or not anyone at the table would call it that. A warm, broth-based soup at the beginning of a meal does 2 things. First, the warmth and the liquid take up space in the stomach gently, so by the time you reach the main dishes, you arrive at them already partially filled, not stuffed, settled. Second, warm liquid at the start of a meal supports digestion, helping the stomach prepare for what follows. Research on what scientists call preloading has consistently found that starting a meal with a low-calorie, broth-based soup reduces the total amount of food eaten in the meal that follows without any conscious effort to eat less. You are not restricting. You are simply arriving at the main course already met. A bowl of simple broth or miso before dinner. Not a thick, cream-based soup. Something light, warm, and mostly liquid. You can make a serviceable miso soup with a spoonful of miso paste dissolved in hot water and a few pieces of tofu or seaweed. It takes under 3 minutes and costs almost nothing. And it quietly changes the entire meal that follows it. That is habit number 2. Habit number 3. The one most Westerners find hardest to believe. Habit number 3. Rice at every meal. In the West, rice is often the first thing people cut when they want to lose weight. Carbs are the enemy. White rice is the worst of them. And yet Japan, where white rice is eaten at nearly every meal, breakfast included, has an obesity rate that is a fraction of the West's. Here is what the fear of rice misses. Rice in a Japanese meal is not eaten the way bread or pasta is eaten in the West. It is not the main event, piled high and sauced heavily. It is a small, plain bowl, served alongside everything else, eaten in alternation with the soup, the fish, the vegetables. It is the neutral base that connects the other flavors, not the star that dominates them. And plain white rice, eaten in a moderate portion alongside protein and vegetables, produces a very different blood sugar response than a large plate of pasta with a heavy sauce. The portion is smaller. The accompaniments, the protein, the fiber from the vegetables, the fat from the fish all slow down how quickly the rice is digested and absorbed. Japan does not fear rice. It respects rice. It gives it a place, a proportion, and a role. And in that structure, rice does not cause weight gain. It anchors a meal that, taken as a whole, is balanced and moderate. The lesson is not about rice specifically. It is about proportion and context. No single food makes you gain weight. The structure of the whole meal does. The fear of rice in the West comes from a misunderstanding of context. A bowl of rice eaten alone, or as the base of a dish loaded with heavy sauce, behaves one way. A small bowl of plain rice eaten alongside protein, fat, and fiber behaves very differently. Japan has been demonstrating this for centuries, and the country's health statistics speak for themselves. A small bowl of plain rice eaten alongside protein and vegetables in proportion. Not the enemy, the anchor. That is habit number 3. Habit number 4, vegetables in quantity and variety. Open a Japanese home refrigerator and the vegetable drawer is the largest section, often taking up the entire bottom half. Japanese meals routinely include 3 or 4 different vegetables in a single sitting, prepared simply, seasoned lightly, and served as sides rather than afterthoughts. This is not a superfood obsession, it is volume. Vegetables are low in calories and high in fiber, which means they take up space in the stomach and contribute to the feeling of fullness without contributing heavily to energy intake. A meal with generous vegetables is a meal where fullness arrives naturally and early, without any need to count or restrict. And the variety matters as much as the volume. Different vegetables provide different nutrients, different textures, different flavors. The variety makes the meal interesting, which keeps you at the table longer, which keeps you eating slowly, which gives the fullness signal time to arrive. Everything connects. And notice the Japanese approach to preparation. Most of these vegetable sides are extremely simple: blanched spinach with a little soy sauce, sliced cucumber with rice vinegar, simmered root vegetables in a light broth, pickled cabbage, nothing elaborate. The effort is in buying and preparing real vegetables, not in making them complicated. Buy 1 extra vegetable this week that you would not normally pick up. Prepare it simply. Add it as a side to tonight's dinner. Small and enough. That is habit number 4. Habit number 5. Fish more often than red meat. Japan consumes more fish per person than almost any other country. And while this is partly geography, a nation of islands surrounded by ocean, it is also deeply cultural. Fish appears at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, grilled, raw, simmered, in soup, in countless forms. From a body composition standpoint, fish offers high-quality protein with generally less saturated fat than red meat. Fatty fish like salmon and mackerel are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which some research has linked to healthier inflammatory markers and improved metabolic health. But the bigger point is simpler than any nutrient breakdown. A diet built around fish and vegetables, with meat as an occasional addition rather than a daily centerpiece, tends to be lower in overall calorie density. You eat well, you eat richly, and the math of what enters the body quietly takes care of itself. And there is a practical trick Japan uses that makes fish easier to eat often. Rather than cooking elaborate fish dishes, Japanese home cooks lean heavily on grilled fish, often just salted and placed under a grill for a few minutes. A piece of salted salmon under the broiler takes less time than cooking a chicken breast and requires almost no skill. The barrier to eating more fish is usually unfamiliarity, not difficulty. Start with one simple grilled fish a week and build from there. That is habit number 5. Habit number 6. Smaller portions, no seconds. In Japan, portions are simply smaller than in the West. Not because people are eating less food in terms of variety or satisfaction, because each individual dish is modest, and together they add up to enough, but not to excess. And here is a cultural difference that makes a real, daily, measurable impact. In most Japanese households, the meal is portioned in the kitchen and brought to the table in individual servings. The pot does not sit in the center of the table, inviting seconds. What is on the plate is the meal. When it is finished, the meal is finished. This small structural choice removes the decision entirely. In a Western meal with serving dishes on the table, every person makes a second decision at the end of the first plate. More or done? And when the food is right there, visible and within reach, the answer skews heavily toward more, regardless of whether the body is still hungry. Japan removes that decision by removing the serving dish from the table. The body gets what it needs. The temptation to overshoot simply does not arise. Here is a simple test you can run this week. For 3 dinners, plate the food in the kitchen and bring it to the table already portioned. For the other dinners, serve family style with the dishes in the center. Notice the difference in how much you eat, and more importantly, how you feel afterward. Most people find they eat noticeably less from the pre-plated meals and feel just as satisfied. The pot on the table was never about hunger. It was about proximity and habit. Plate the food in the kitchen. Serve individual portions. Keep the pot off the table. That is habit number 6. And now habit number 7. The quiet philosophy underneath all 6. Habit number 7. Hara hachi, and the respect for enough. In Okinawa, one of the regions of Japan with the longest-lived, healthiest populations on Earth, there is a phrase spoken at mealtimes. Hara hachi, eat until you are 8 parts out of 10 full. Not until you are stuffed, not until the plate is empty, until you are no longer hungry, and then you stop. This is the habit that holds the other 6 together, because all of them are, at their core, different expressions of the same idea. The many small dishes slow you down enough to hear the signal. The soup fills you gently before the main course. The rice is portioned modestly. The vegetables provide volume without excess. The fish keeps the calorie density honest. The individual portions remove the temptation to overshoot. And Hara hachi is the moment where all of that comes together. It is the quiet question asked near the end of every meal. Am I still hungry, or am I simply still eating? The moment the honest answer is that you are no longer hungry, you stop. Even with food on the plate, even with room for more, it is not deprivation. It is precision. It is eating exactly as much as your body needs. Not a bite more, not a bite less, and feeling 20 minutes later perfectly and comfortably right. The West has no equivalent phrase, no cultural practice of stopping before full. And without one, every meal ends at the same place. The plate is empty, the stomach is stretched, and the body stores what it did not need. Hara hachi simply moves the stopping point backward, by a few bites, 3 times a day, every day, for a lifetime. The compound effect of that small daily shift is the entire difference. That is habit number 7. Here is everything in one breath. Many small dishes instead of one big plate. Soup at the beginning, not the side. Rice in proportion, not in fear. Vegetables in quantity and variety. Fish more often than red meat. Individual portions served from the kitchen, not the table. And underneath all of it, Hara hachi, the gentle daily practice of stopping at enough. 7 habits. Not one of them a diet. Not one of them requiring a food you cannot find. Not one of them asking you to give up anything you love. They do not restrict what you eat. They reshape how you eat it. And a body fed this way day after day, year after year, simply never learns to carry more than it needs. Japan does not diet. Japan eats, abundantly, beautifully, and with a structure that quietly takes care of everything a diet tries to force. Now, before you close this, I want to ask you something honestly. Which of these 7 habits is the one your meals are most missing? Is it the small dishes you have never tried? The soup you skip? The rice you have been avoiding? The vegetables you keep meaning to add? The fish you rarely cook? The seconds you always reach for? Or is it simply Hara hachi, the pause at 8 out of 10 that you have never once practiced? Drop the number in the comments, 1 through 7, because naming the one thing is the first step toward changing it. And someone reading your comment may recognize their own plate in it and decide to change theirs. If this changed the way you think about food, share it with one person who has tried every diet and still cannot find something that lasts. What they may be missing is not a diet at all. It is a way of eating. Take care of yourselves. I will see you in the next one. This content is for general well-being and lifestyle inspiration only. It is not a substitute for advice from a qualified medical or health professional.